try, guys. I promise I try. Somebody send me a message after class that says, put the thing on YouTube, please, because I will forget. No, somebody do it. Somebody do it, please. Bother me.
We were praying like the day before the test, 2 days before the test. Is it up? Everybody's like talking about it. Is it up?
No, because I'm gonna forget. The second I hit export, it falls out of my brain. So please send me a message, remind me, bother me. I would rather you guys bother me and get the information that you need than you not bother me and you be sitting in the dark. I'm so sure. I'm so sure. But when you bother me, send me a message through Canvas, not my email. If it goes to my email, it will get lost.
You cannot type from me.
If it goes to my email, it gets lost. Send it through Canvas. Canvas is right in my face. I have the app. It blows up in my phone, and please send it through Canvas. Bother me. I said it with my chest. It's on the recording. Bother me. Okay? Cool. So, your nervous system is the overall system throughout your body that controls everything. Communication, movement, breathing, anything that you don't think about, your body's doing it for you. Your brain's probably doing it for you. Okay? There are 3 general overlapping functions. The first is sensory reception. Okay? The second is processing that sensory reception. And then the third is a response. All right? First, your body will detect a stimulus, and a stimulus is just any changes detected inside or outside the body. Okay? That stimulus is picked up by your sensory receptors, and then your sensory receptors gather all of that information, and that is what we call a sensory input. Okay? From there, that sensory input gets sent all the way weird places that it may need to go. And in that process, we call it integration. And integration is just what we call your brain and body trying to make sense of all of that sensory input. Okay? From that sensory input, and after it's been integrated, your brain says, okay, I need to do something about this. And it will send off a response, whether that be making a gland activate and secrete some liquids or fluids or whatever, or making a muscle move or something like that. Okay? So we have the sensory input, the integration of that input, and then some type of motor output. Okay? Just like that. So sensory input, probably the thing that would change inside your body or outside your body, is that your sodium levels are high. And that would tell your body, hey, I'm kind of thirsty. So what you would do, you would go around, you would find a cup of water, you see that water, slight change in your environment, you would say, hey, I can drink that. Your brain would say, I need to do all the things that I need to do to get that cup of water into my hand so that I can then solve the problem of my sodium levels being high and drink that water. In my case, it's coffee. My brain is tired, so it says drink coffee, so not tired. Make sense? Cool. We break up our nervous system into 2 main parts, okay? We have your central nervous system. What is the central nervous system comprised of? Yeah, it's just your brain and your spinal cord. And your central nervous system is the main guy for integrating and commanding movement, motion, everything. Most of the thoughts and things that you have in a day are controlled by your central nervous system. Okay? The second division of your nervous system is the peripheral nervous system. And your peripheral nervous system is mostly just the nerves that come off of your brain and your spinal cord. Okay? What are some of the, well, you don't know the answer to this, but you do. One of these sets that we talk about are the cranial nerves. Oop, not cranial nerves. The cranial nerves. How many cranial nerves do we have? 12 pairs. 12 pairs of cranial nerves. And then you have the spinal nerves. Okay? Spinal nerves kind of exit through your spine, obviously, right? In the peripheral nervous system, these peripheral nerves link everything to the central nervous system eventually. It's just kind of a little bit more of a process to get there, okay? We use a special term. That special term is ganglia. And those are just clusters of cell bodies in the peripheral nervous system. Ganglia is peripheral nervous system specific. Same, bro. Okay. So this is just a diagram of that nervous system. We have your brain, our spinal cord, and then all of these little yellow guys hanging off the sides are spinal nerves. Let's see the black spinal nerves here. And then you have your cranial nerves up in here. You remember where some of them come in and out of, right? Cool. Okay. So when we're talking about sensory input and motor output, remember that's, we see something, brain says integrate this, and then we do something about it, okay? The sensory nerves that we talk about are called afferent nerves. And these afferent nerves pick up afferent signals. They're picked up by sensory receptors. And those are usually just a receptor that is in, around, or near something that is picking up a sensation or a change in the environment, okay? A motor signal is called an efferent signal. I know they're similar, but they are different. Try not to get those mixed up. Afferent is sensory, efferent is motor. You can think of efferent like having an effect on something. Okay? Afferent will affect how you feel. Does that make sense? An afferent signal is a sensory signal. An efferent signal is a motor signal. And these efferent neurons will usually innervate a muscle, a gland, something that can do something about it, about the change. Okay. The fun thing about the nervous system is that we divide it like crazy. Just when you thought you were done dividing the nervous system, boom, it divides again, okay? So first, when we're dividing our sensory input and our motor output, we talk about them in terms of the somatic body region and the visceral body region. What's the difference between these two? What's a visceral organ? A visceral organ? Yeah, those are the more internal things. Like, for example, your stomach, your kidneys, your intestines. These are all visceral organs. Okay? The somatic body region is more of the outside skeletal stuff. Okay?
That part of your skin tone.
Sometimes, yeah. Depends on where we are in the body. And so because we have these somatic and visceral, that breaks down even further into somatic, sensory, visceral. Oh no, come back. Visceral sensory. What do we think this one might be? Somatic motor. And visceral motor. Okay? Your visceral motor system is your autonomic nervous system. This is the one that you don't think about at all. This is your breathing rate, your heart rate, all of those things that you don't really have any control over. Well, to an extent. Okay? Don't let this next diagram scare you. It's just big. Okay? So, our central nervous system and our peripheral nervous system hang out at the top. Those are your most basic divisions of your nervous system. Okay? From there, your peripheral nervous system breaks down into your sensory division and your motor division. Okay? So you have an afferent peripheral and an efferent peripheral. That efferent peripheral will then break down further into your somatic nervous system and your autonomic nervous system. Your somatic nervous system is voluntary control. Your autonomic nervous system is involuntary. And then that autonomic nervous system breaks down even further into two separate bits, your sympathetic and parasympathetic divisions. You've heard of your sympathetic nervous system. You've heard of your fight or flight reaction. That is your sympathetic. Right? Flight. Your parasympathetic is your rest and digest system. Okay? All of these systems work together to keep you a functional human being. We're going to talk about them all a little bit further now. So, your somatic sensory system is the one that is in control of your general somatic senses. These receptors are usually found kind of throughout your body. You feel them more on your skin, more so towards the surface of your body. What's something that you feel on the outside of your body? Kind of on the outside of your body. What's this sensation though? Touch. Yeah, that's one of them. If I were to come up and stab you with my keys, what would that feel like? Pain. That's another one of those sensations. Say we got a A silver alert on your phones. Everyone's phone started to go off. What's that? What does that feel? Vibration. That vibration that you feel when your phone buzzes. What if I were to come up and give you a big hug and squeeze, 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 squeeze? Pressure. That's pressure. Yeah. And if I said, this coffee is gross, Jocelyn, I don't know why you got it for me, and dumped it all over your head, what would you feel? Anger, heat, but the one I was looking for there was temperature.
She didn't send it. She straight up told you.
I don't know what's happening. Okay, so all of those sensations are things that you feel with your somatic, kind of towards the surface of your body, sensory system. Okay, these are widespread sensations. Okay, another one of the sensations that we understand to be a part of our somatic sensory system is the proprioceptive sense. What does that Latin root proprio mean? Self. Yeah. It is your self-sense system. It's how you determine where your body is in space. Like, so if I turn around and I spin, and I go, I'm still aware of the fact that my, whatever arm this is over here, and this one's kind of over here, and I think that there might be a table or something over there somewhere, right? So I'm aware of where my body is in space. That is your proprioceptive sense, okay? It also detects like overstretching of your muscles and stuff like that, but so you don't like overextend all of your muscles and all that jazz, but I don't have great proprioception anyway. Right? And then some of the special somatic senses that we have are hearing, balance, and vision. Hearing and balance are kind of intertwined. We have a nerve, a cranial nerve, called the vestibulocochlear. Vestibulocochlear nerve. That helps to regulate some of that stuff. And then vision is which one? Optic. Okay, that's cranial nerve 8 and cranial nerve 2. Okay, so that's somatic sensory, towards the outside of the body sensory. Visceral sensory sensations that we feel. I guess you guys don't even really think about it as a stretch, but when your bladder is super, super full and you really gotta pee, that's a sensation, that's a visceral sensory sensation that says, hey, you need to expel this waste right now, or you're going to expel it in your pants, and that's not gonna be fun, okay? So stretch is one of those sensations. When you're too full, when you've had too much to eat, you feel that fullness, right? So stretch, you feel pain, you can feel temperature a little bit. Your organs are better at identifying temperature than you are, right? When you drink an ice cold glass of water and you can kind of feel it running down your throat, right? So some of those internal sensations. Nausea is a big one. You feel nauseous. That's an internal sensation. And then hunger. Your body will tell you when you are hungry, for the most part. These visceral sensations are mainly felt in your digestive, urinary tracts, and in your reproductive organs. And then some special visceral senses. Give me a guess. Taste. Yeah. What else? Smell. You smell stuff, the smelly smells that are smelling, and the good tastes. Okay? Somatic motor system is your voluntary nervous system. Because it is voluntary, it signals the contraction of what kind of muscle? Yes, of skeletal muscle. Your skeletal muscle is under your control. Your somatic motor system is under your control. Voluntary. Voluntary. I volunteer as a tribute. I tried. It didn't do it. That's an L, and that's a U. Shut up. I don't know how to spell voluntary.
It's right there.
Shush. Nobody asked you. Voluntary. I'm going to volunteer you as a tribute next. Okay? So your somatic motor system is under your voluntary control. You say, hey, Arlen's giving me some squat right now. I'm going to walk up and pop her. I'm not going to do that. For the recording, I'm not going to do that. Okay. Next division is your visceral motor system. Visceral motor is involuntary. It is under your involuntary control. So it signals the contraction of what types of muscles?
Cardiac.
There you go. Of your smooth. They regulate the contraction of your smooth and cardiac muscles. Cardiac. Your eyes, your eyes do contract. She's not wrong, right? Your eyes do contract when you're exposed to light. Your eyes dilate and constrict, and that is a part of your autonomic nervous system. So you're not wrong, but it wasn't what I was looking for. Okay? Your smooth and your cardiac muscle. Please don't play with me right now. Like muscle milk. Okay? And they control the function of your visceral organs. Give me an example of a visceral organ. Your stomach, yeah. Okay. An entire chapter is dedicated to just your visceral motor system. That is chapter 15. It's a fun one. And again, that visceral motor system is broken down into two parts, your sympathetic and your parasympathetic. Okay? Cool. So those are the overall basic divisions of the nervous system. Okay? Now we're going to talk a little bit more about the cells and the tissues that you might find in your nervous system. Okay? So we know that nervous tissue, it's one of our 4 main basic types of tissue. What are the other 3? Go back to histo. Go back to histo. What other types of tissues are there? There are 4 of them. Connective, epithelial, muscles. Okay? Muscles are not a connective tissue. Bone is a connective tissue. Blood is a connective tissue. Muscles are a tissue all up on their own. Okay? In nervous tissue, the cells are usually pretty densely packed and very intertwined. They are all up on each other all the time. And there are 2 main cell types. The first is your neuron. That's your main big guy that transmits all of the electrical signals from your brain to your spinal cord to the other nerves everywhere. You're going to find neurons everywhere. The next set are your support cells. We call these cells neuroglia. Neuroglia. These neuroglial cells are not excitable, meaning that they do not transmit any electrical signals. They are just there for support. Sometimes they will surround and wrap around neurons. They have some different functions. There's a bunch of different types, but all you need to know for now is that they support your neurons, they keep them healthy, and they do not transmit any electrical activity. Okay? Your neurons are the basic motor, or the basic unit of the nervous system. Oops. Basic unit. That's too small. Okay. Each of those specialized cells plays a role in conducting electrical impulses and doing all kinds of stuff so that your body functions. Oh no. Look at that. Sorry guys, 1 second. Basic structural unit. I'm sorry, I knew I was missing a word. Come on, man. Structural unit. Okay. Some special characteristics of neurons. They can live as long as you live, right? So they have an incredible amount of longevity, however you say that word. You see that this is not wanting to do this with me, right? You know how there's an O and an N in between theirs. I really tried. Okay? So they have an incredible amount of longevity. Second, your neurons do not divide. For the most part. Okay? Your neural stem cells are the exception to that rule. You even as you're at your grown adult age, still have some neural stem cells that exist throughout your body, but they only really come into play if there's been some damage or if there's been some injury. For the most part, they're going to stay pretty dormant. Okay? So your neurons do not divide. After you have built up all of your neurons, you're only going to be losing them for the rest of your life. Sorry. Don't know what to tell you. Exercise your brains daily. Okay? Next is that your neurons have an incredibly high metabolic rate. Meaning that they require a ton of oxygen and glucose. Have you ever heard that your brain uses like 20% of the sugar that you consume in a day? It's because your neurons have such a high metabolic rate that they're going through that thing like it's water. Okay? Your neurons will die after about 5 minutes without oxygen. Not all at once. They just kind of start to die in pieces. That's why a lot of people say, if I have been unconscious or not breathing for over 5, 6, 7 minutes, do not resuscitate me. Just let me go. Because at that time, large portions of your brain will start to die because they're not getting enough oxygen. Therefore, the cells will start to kaput. Okay? Keep this image in your head. This is a diagram of a neuron. This part is the cell body. all of these branchy guys up here. These are dendrites. This bit here is the axon hillock. And the axon itself comes all the way down here. Axon is this long boy down here. Just keep this image in your head. We're going to talk about all of them as we go. Okay. So the cell body or soma of your neurons, they can have a pretty variable size. They can be anywhere from 5 to 140 microns. Okay. Depending on the type of neuron, where you find it, etc. There are some neurons that are larger than others. For example, a very large neuron that you have are your Purkinje fibers in your cerebellum. That's what I did my entire master's thesis on. Don't ask me any questions about it. No, you can ask me. I'll answer to the best of my ability. Okay? If you want to. Your cell body will usually contain some organelles plus some other structures. One of those other super important structures are called chromatophilic bodies. Jeez Louise. Chromatophilic or meso bodies. Not meso. I don't know why I keep drawing M's instead of N's today. Meso bodies. And these are essentially just clusters of rough endoplasmic reticulum and free ribosomes. Remember, rough endoplasmic reticulum is a site for protein synthesis. And your free ribosomes also do quite a bit of protein synthesis. And those chromatophilic bodies help to renew the membranes of those neurons because they're getting zapped with electrical activity constantly. So they do need a little bit of refresh every once in a while because the cells themselves don't divide. Okay. Neurofibrils are your neurons' version of the cytoskeleton. And those neurofibrils are bundles of intermediate filaments. Okay. And they just help to kind of maintain the structure and shape of those neurons. Most of the neuronal cell bodies are located in the central nervous system, but you do have some neuronal cell bodies in the peripheral nervous system. We talked about their name up at the top. Does anyone remember what they were called? Those spots, clusters of neuronal cell bodies. Ganglia, yeah. Ganglia. You've seen this image. So that's your little cell body. You can see this teeny tiny little mitochondria in there. There's some endoplasmic reticulum right in there. And those are those chromatophilic bodies. And they secrete also what we call chromatophilic substance. It's just liquid. Don't worry about that. Okay. Next part of the neuron that we talk about is the dendrites. These are extensively branching and they branch away from the cell body. Okay. So they're these kind of arm-looking guys that are branching from the cell body like that. I'm actually going to take away that word away because it's going to confuse you guys. But they extensively branch from the cell body. They transmit electrical signals to the cell body, towards that cell body, okay? So all of this electrical input is going to go pew, 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 towards that cell body. Okay. Again, that chromatophilic substance is created in part by the dendrites and goes down to that axon hillock. Axon hillock is just that little blip where the cell body starts to kind of form into the axon itself. Okay? These dendrites function as a receptor site for signals from other neurons. Okay? So if I had another neuron over here and his axon's sending me info, yeah. The information from this guy is going to pop over here and try to head down to the next cell body. Okay? Make sense? Great. Okay. Axons, super important. I'm sure you've heard of axons. Axons are special. Okay? Neurons only have one axon. That one axon can branch, but it is just one axon. Okay? It is the impulse generator and conductor, so it is the one that is forming those electrical signals. And it transmits its impulses away from cell body. Okay. Let's go back to drawing my little neuron. And all of my dendrites here that are taking in all this information, and my axon. After my dendrites have received all this information, my cell body, very much like my brain, is going to integrate that information and then try to pass it on to the next neuron, and my axon is what will take it away from my cell body. Okay? That process of sending substances and other things is called axonal transport. Cool? Like I said, every neuron will only have one axon, but occasionally it will branch off. Those branching offs are called axon collaterals. You saw when I was drawing my axon, I kind of drew it with some tails or whatever at the end. That tail ending is the multiple branches at the end of the axon, the telodendrion, and that is also what we call terminal arborization. Arborization. The root arbor means tree. It looks like a little tree, okay? And then at the end of those, of our terminal arbor vitae, that's actually what they're called, terminal arbor vitae. We have what we call terminal boutons, but that is just a fancy word for axon terminals. And your axon terminals are going to be the last spot before you get to your synapse. What is a synapse, you might ask? Don't worry, I'm going to tell you. Not the next slide, but maybe the slide after. Cool? With me? Any questions so far? Anything I can clarify so far? Just too much information. We don't even know what we don't know? Great. Okay, that's fine. Don't worry, we'll get there. Which is going to be the same thing as an electrical impulse, is generated at that first initial segment of the axon hillock. Okay? That nerve impulse is conducted along the axon until it reaches those terminal boutons. Okay? Once it has reached the terminal boutons, a very specific molecule is released from the vesicles at the end of those boutons. Anyone have an idea of what those molecules might be called? Neurotransmitters. Exactly. Neurotransmitters are basically your nerves messaging molecules to communicate with each other. Different neurotransmitters do different things. You've heard of them: serotonin, dopamine, all kinds of stuff. Those are all neurotransmitters. GABA, acetylcholine is a really common neurotransmitter, all that jazz. Okay. Basically, one axon will send information. It will get to the axon terminals at the end, and in between those axon terminals and the dendrites of the next neuron, there's a little tiny bit of space. This is called a synapse. More specifically, it is a synaptic cleft. Okay? Synaptic cleft. But the place where these two meet is just called a synapse. But the actual space in between is the synaptic cleft. Types of synapses: an axodendritic synapse. These are the most common. If you break up the words axodendritic, you know exactly where it is. It's between an axon and a dendrite. The next type of synapse is an axosomatic synapse. And those ones are between the axon and a neuronal cell body. Like I said, a synapse is just a site in which neurons communicate. And most information is passed through those chemical messengers called neurotransmitters. There's a little bit of information here and there that gets passed through gap junctions. Remember, we kind of talked about those, like desmosomes, like just things that are cells that are close by enough to each other that they can just send off a little information here and there. But for the most part, most of the information is going to be sent through those chemical messengers called neurotransmitters. Okay? This is important. You will sometimes, most of the times, all of the time, have a presynaptic neuron. Hello, come on, bro. A presynaptic neuron and a postsynaptic neuron. The presynaptic neuron is the one sending the information. The postsynaptic neuron, make him blue, is the one who is going to be receiving that information. Okay? So, pre, post. That is important. This is going to come into play a lot with our peripheral nervous system. Okay? It is important that you know how to differentiate between which one is the presynaptic neuron and which is the postsynaptic neuron. Synapses, if you think about them, are just some very elaborate cell junctions, okay? Synaptic vesicles on the presynaptic side are basically just these membrane-bound sacs, that have neurotransmitters in them. E-R-S, I tried. Okay. We know that vesicles are just sacs that have stuff in them. Synaptic vesicles are just sacs with stuff in them near your synapses. Because why? Biologists are what? Not creative. Okay? You have a ton of mitochondria in those axon terminals. Why? There's a lot of stuff that needs to happen. There's a lot of things going on, and sometimes, a lot of the time, it requires energy to make those things happen. That's part of why your brain uses like 20% of your glucose and 20% of your oxygen at any given time. Okay? Like I said earlier, the synaptic cleft, Lord almighty, you got in the synaptic cleft, all right? You know what I mean there, right? I tried. You see this, right? You see that I'm trying. And that's just what separates the plasma membrane of two different neurons, of your presynaptic and your postsynaptic neuron. All right. So, if I'm looking over here, which of these neurons, one is this guy, two is this guy. Which one is my presynaptic neuron?
Oh, sorry.
I have one vote for two. Two. I'm hearing twos across the board. My presynaptic neuron? My presynaptic neuron? It's two. It's two. Because remember, the presynaptic neuron is the one that is sending information down this axon to be accepted by the next guy's dendrites. My synapse is right here. This guy's axon is pushing this information, and these guys' dendrites is like, give me all that tea. I want it. Give me all the information. I need it. Okay? And then this one will integrate it into its cell body, and then eventually send all that information down to its terminal boutons, and say I had another neuron here in relation to this guy. Is this one my presynaptic or my postsynaptic? In relation to the one that I just kind of helter-skelter drew. Presynaptic, because it is before this synapse. Okay? Make sense? Kinda. Okay. Don't worry, we'll talk about it. This space right in here, that is your synaptic cleft. No neuron touches any other neuron ever. Your synaptic vesicles will hang out near that plasma membrane, eventually get spit out, and the neurotransmitters will hang out in the synaptic cleft until they are received by a receptor on your postsynaptic neuron, which then will tell that postsynaptic neuron what to do. All right.